going through a divorce. So we traveled together, and just being in the car with Randy for miles and miles, I just learned so much about the business. And Randy was a guy who, he was really quiet, but he led by example. I mean, at big shows, at pay-per-views, he just stepped up. He just worked harder than everybody else, and I just miss him, man. I don't know what else to say. I mean, there's so many Randy Savage stories I could share, but he was such a private person, and I kind of want to respect that. You know?
If you had to describe him in one word.
Intense.
That's a popular one.
Intense. I mean, Randy's the kind of guy, like one time he had these custom-made cowboy boots on. I went, wow, Randy, nice boots. And he goes, what do you mean by that? And it was like, your boots are nice? You know, like he just, you got to remember, he's from that era when it was real cutthroat. There was no guaranteed money or any of that kind of stuff. So, you know, everybody was competing for spots. So Randy was super, always watching his back and didn't trust anybody. And that's just the product of the way he came up. But he was also one of the kindest, most generous guys I worked with. You know, I mean, he led me, he elevated me. I mean, to come in as a nobody and to work with Randy Savage, you know, pretty strong for me. And I'll be eternally grateful for Randy for that. And I sure miss him. And I think about him all the time.
Yeah, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's Razor Ramon, everybody, at the big event, live for Diamond 365 Radio.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
And welcome back, everybody. That was X-Pac and Scott Hall, two men that vividly knew the Macho Man Randy Savage from their early days at WWE, when Macho Man was kind of stuck behind the broadcast booth, and when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash jumped ship to WCW with X-Pac a little bit after that. We all know that about a year later, Macho Man Randy Savage went, and they formed the NWO, and you know, they had the Black and White, and then the Wolfpack, and all these guys worked very, very close together because they were the backbone and the foundation of WCW, with Hogan and Sting and guys like that. So they fought each other, they traveled with each other, or they tagged with each other one-on-one. I mean, it just, the amount of times that these guys spent together at WCW was astronomical. And to hear Razor Ramon refer back to his very first time that he had to interrupt the Macho Man during a promo, because that was the machismo versus Macho Man kind of thing, and how he was a huge Macho Man fan, and it was like freaking him out that he had to do that. And you know, it just lets you understand that these guys are human. You know, they go out there and they're trying to entertain the fans, and they're doing it, you know, the same way that your movie stars are doing it on set, and they got to work with maybe their hero, and it's it's the same kind of thing. So.
And it shows the respect that some of these guys had for Macho Man as well. Like Scott Hall not wanting to interrupt him during a promo, like being nervous about that. It just shows the respect that Macho Man had throughout the locker room.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's just, it's part of the storyline, but you think about it and you're like, but I got to go out there and interrupt Macho Man Randy Savage during a promo. I mean, this guy is like my hero. I'm like, he's
yeah.
And then he was referring back to him that he had, when he had the sunglasses and the cowboy hats, and you really couldn't see his eyes, and he was always spinning around and, out of control, so you didn't know what he was looking at, who he was talking to, and it was something for him to remember. And then X-Pac referring to his first pair of wrestling boots were an old pair of Macho Man Randy Savage that Angelo Poffo gave him during his early career.
That's so crazy.
So, what would be one of the more memorable moments for you?
One of my favorite moments was the Cream of the Crop interview with Mean Gene Okerlund. Like, that was just so hilarious. I mean, we've been talking about his in-ring talent and everything. The guy was so ridiculously entertaining in his early years with his promos. Yeah. It was just the Cream of the Crop interview. If you have not seen it, everybody listening right now, go on YouTube, search Cream of the Crop Macho Man Randy Savage. he takes little packages of creamer for coffee, and he just has them stored somewhere, and he just like throws them at Mean Gene and puts them on his head and throws it up in the air. And it's so priceless, and you'll die laughing for the 2-minute promo that it is. That has to be one of my favorite promos of Macho Man ever.
Yeah, that's definitely a funny one, and I'm like pissed off because I don't think I uploaded the Mean Gene Okerlund one, which is gonna piss me off because that was one of the better ones. But I would say my most memorable moment, besides WrestleMania 4, me being a little older, when he came in and he had all the managers lined up, and he had to decide who his manager was gonna be. Who was his manager? Was it gonna be Jimmy Hart? Was it going to be Mean Gene? Not Mean Gene. Was it going to be Bobby the Brain, the Grand Wizard, Classy Freddie Blassie, Slick? All these guys were there, and he had to decide which one of these guys was going to be his manager. And then he had this big kind of like press conference where they all came out and they were all sitting there waiting, and they all had to see, who he was going to decide who he's going to bring, and he winds up announcing that this is the next manager of the Macho Man Randy Savage. He points to the locker room area, and out comes Miss Elizabeth. I mean, if that didn't shock the world, if that wasn't a jaw-dropping moment in professional wrestling, nothing is, because nobody, and I mean nobody, expected that. Nobody expected, let alone a female manager, to come walking down. I mean, it was that, like, what just happened?
Especially when there was supposed to be the decision of choosing one of those like Hall of Fame choices that they had, that Macho Man had at that time, and then bringing in somebody like Miss Elizabeth.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that, it was something that just doesn't happen. Like that doesn't happen, and especially in that day and age of wrestling. It just doesn't happen. There was really no female wrestlers that became managers. Female wrestling was huge back then. I mean, that's the way it was. There was no female entourages and stuff like that. This was happening like way before its time, way before the Sensational Sherrys. And Sensational Sherry was probably 27-year-old female wrestler at the time. She was still young.
Yeah.
She was still competing with Moolah for the title. So I mean, it's amazing, absolutely amazing of where this all went and how it all started, and this was all a stall tactic, because this was Randy Savage was still trying to negotiate his contract situation with Major League Baseball, because technically he was still under contract. He didn't sign his retirement papers yet, and he wasn't allowed to really compete with the WWE until that was all taken care of. And Macho Man Randy Savage and Elizabeth wasn't the original duo. They were trying for someone else, but he said, this is my wife. I want my wife by my side, and I want to spend everything that we do together. I want to do it together. And the Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth became this, public eye. And at times where Miss Elizabeth sometimes outshined the Macho Man, whether it was on purpose or a tactic by the announcers to kind of show Randy's jealous side. But
I think that's another reason to look up to Randy as well, is in a business where relationships real life relationships can come and go. He wanted to spend that time with his wife, as well as on screen, as well as in their private life as well.
Oh, absolutely. And some might say that might have cost him his relationship.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it remains to be seen, but during this time that we were talking about this, I was able to upload the Mean Gene interview. So thank God for memories and stories, because then we could talk about them and give me some time to upload it. But here is Mean Gene Okerlund, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody knows Mean Gene, and yes, I've been asked, is that really his voice? Oh yeah, that's really his voice. Mean Gene Okerlund really sounds like that. So here's Mean Gene Okerlund, followed by Hillbilly Jim, with the next couple of interviews as we celebrate the life and the memories of the Macho Man Randy Savage, and we all say Savage for the Hall 2015. So relax and listen to this next interview.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, here at the big event, and we're here with Mean Gene Okerlund. And Mean Gene, we're doing a tribute show for the Macho Man Randy Savage. It's coming 16th. It's the day after his birthday. And I just want to know the most memorable moment that you can remember with the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Well, I don't think I could pinpoint any one moment. I had a lot of great moments with the Macho Man. Totally professional, always prepared, and looked good, and was one hell of a worker. One of my all-time favorites.
If you had to describe him in one word, what would it be?
Magic. He had the magic, and he could do it all. He could talk, he could wrestle, and he wore the spandex, but still looked good.
All right, I appreciate your time, Mean Gene Okerlund.
One more inside thing. Elizabeth never wore underwear. I know.
Thank you. We're live at the big event with Hillbilly Jim, WWE superstar. Hillbilly, your years that you worked with Randy Savage, would you say it was maybe one of your most... We're live at the big event with Hillbilly Jim, WWE superstar. Hillbilly, your years that you worked with Randy Savage, would you say it was maybe one of your most memorable moments?
Well, he's a dear friend of mine. First off, I've known him for a long time. I knew his father real well, the late great Angelo Poffo. I knew his mother as well. I knew him and his brother when they had that ICW wrestling in Lexington, Kentucky many years ago, with Bob Roop in there and Cowboy Bob Orton and the whole schmaz. But Randy was just a character to me, and I really enjoyed him. He was one of the better, if you really want to know about technical guys in the ring, Randy Savage was amazing in the ring, and he was dedicated to this business like nobody I ever knew. He was hardcore for the wrestling world. He grew up in this business, and he put in his time, and I tell you one thing, he did everything to make sure he entertained. When that bell rang, Macho Man was just fabulous. And of course, we all know about the thing with him and Miss Elizabeth. That was just a magical time. And Elizabeth rose on up to be just as popular almost as Randy did. But I tell you, in ring, Randy Macho Man Savage was a great technician. I mean, he was wonderful to wrestle with. I loved him. It was like being he was a true expert, And there's just a few guys like that. And missing him like I do every year or so, I think about him. I can't believe he's gone. I still talk to his brother Lanny all the time in Florida. And it's just we're from Kentucky kind of, because he was in northern Kentucky around Lexington. I live down around Nashville, Bowling Green, Kentucky. So I knew Randy from down there, and we always got along well. I came to the WWF a little bit before Randy did. I broke through, and then I brought in Jimmy Hart, and Jimmy Hart brought in Randy, and it was that kind of thing. And he and I were always just wonderful friends, and we had a couple of inside jokes we'd always tell. But I got to tell you something, man. That guy there don't get his due for his ring work. His ring work is phenomenal, and I miss him to this day. And I know the fans do too. And he gave you every bit of your money's worth when you came to see Randy Macho Man Savage. And his business is it's not quite as good with a guy like that being gone. That's my feeling.
If you had to describe him in one word, what would it be?
Intense. He was an intense guy. And I'll tell you what, he had a great memory though. But I found Randy to be a very fair guy. You know, he would. He was big in what he did, but he always gave out compliments to guys if they were good. You know, if they did something good. But Randy was so heavy. He was deeper in the business than most of us guys are. In other words, he lived it and breathed it because, you know, second generation wrestlers like that sometimes are.